I didn't get out of town.
Yeah. Boulder, yeah. I've never been there, but all the pictures and everything. It looks so beautiful.
Pretty spectacular.
It is after 11, so I'll,
Yeah. My friend from college is there. Yeah, he's so lucky. Like, yeah.
It's interesting.
Pat, do we have a quorum?
Typical residency. Come, they love it.
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Okay, we can begin now. All right. It is a little after 11. I'm going to go ahead and convene the meeting, the May meeting. And Pat, would you please call the roll, please?
Good morning, everyone. Harold Seguina from City of Avondale. He is on WebEx. City of Buckeye, Dan Cotterman. City of Chandler, Jason Crampton.
Here.
City of El Mirage, Amber Wakeman. Town of Fountain Hills, Dave Trimble.
Here.
Town of Gilbert, Mary Goodman.
Here.
City of Glendale, Kevin Lake.
Here.
City of Goodyear, Winnette Reed.
Present.
City of Mesa, Jody Sorrell.
Present.
City of Peoria, Kevin Burke. City of Phoenix, Mario Paniagua.
Here.
Town of Queen Creek, Bruce Gardner. He is here on WebEx. City of Scottsdale, Mark Melanchenko.
Here.
City of Surprise, Tracy Montgomery. She is here on WebEx. City of Tempe, Rosa Inchausti.
Present.
Chair, we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. If a committee member would like to ask a question or make a comment during the meeting, please type your comment in the box and it will be read aloud and answered for those who are on WebEx. All meeting attendees, please mute your computer, microphone, or phone. So now it's time for public comment. And the public will be provided an opportunity at this time to address the committees on non-agenda items and all action agenda items for the joint RPTA and VMR meeting agendas. Up to 3 minutes will be provided per speaker unless the chair allows more at their discretion. A total of 15 minutes for all speakers will be provided. Do we have any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We are moving right along to Chief Executive Officer's report. Jessica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I have an additional item. I don't have a slide for this because we just came from the graduation ceremony for our VNEX, our Valley Metro Exchange program. This is a program new to us. It is a cross-training program for team members within Valley Metro with the goal of orienting them to the many different divisions, departments, and functions of the organization. For the past 90 days, this cohort group visited our sites, toured our system, and heard presentations from leaders throughout the organization. And the goal there is really to build a team that is more collaborative, more engaged, and has a strong understanding of what we do here at Valley Metro. I know this will pay dividends down the road as we work to develop a stronger Valley Metro team. So I congratulate Hillary Foos, Penny Lynch, and Julie Landsberg, who spearheaded this program. They did a wonderful job of creating the curriculum, and the graduates were very excited. We'll have photos soon. Speaking of excitement, we had the third Fiesta on Central on April 20th. This was a celebration for the community that is in the path of the South Central Extension construction program. Over 30 businesses participated with booths that day. We had over 350 people attend, including Valley Metro Rail Chairwoman Lara Pastor, as well as newly appointed District 7 Council member Carlos Galindo Elvira, who came and celebrated with us that day. What a wonderful event. We can really feel the energy of the community. They are beginning to see the light, if you will, on this long construction project. We are about 80% complete now on the South Central extension, and we are still on track to open in 2025. Every week, we are installing about 1,300 linear feet of track. So the progress is really palpable. The best performing week we've had so far, we laid 1,800 linear feet of track on the South Central Corridor. We're working now to power up our traction power substations. Those are, of course, the stations that deliver power to our overhead catenary system and ultimately power those light rail vehicles. And all of our stations are now under construction. Upcoming milestones for us this month, we will complete the concrete placements from downtown to I-17. And then in July, we will have completed all of our exterior hardscape. That means sidewalks, driveway entrances, which is a really big deal for our local businesses and residents, curbs and gutter. And then we'll be finishing on from there with punch list items. So though we are opening in 2025, we have several months of pre-revenue testing that takes place before we're actually beginning revenue service. So you'll see and feel the completion of the project long before we cut that ribbon and run our first revenue train. We are also beginning to see artwork, and I think Valley Metro and our art partners do a wonderful job of installing artwork at the stations and along the corridors. One of my favorites is the giving tree, which you see pictured as the prickly pear cactus on the left, and that is scheduled to be installed on May 11th at the Buckeye Station. Additional art pieces for the corridor are in the process of being manufactured and will be installed later this year, of course, before we begin revenue service. Our fare collection modernization project has really picked up steam. We have completed our first pass of ticket vending machine installation. So that means every light rail station now has a ticket vending machine installed. We're also working with City of Tempe staff to plan future installation of fare vending equipment along streetcar. To date, 59 ticket vending machines have been installed. Our commissioning and testing of those TVMs, including software and hardware functionality, is underway. And in July, we will begin our second pass. So that means us installing additional TVMs at stations. Just a couple of weeks ago, we submitted, along with City of Phoenix, a partnership grant for the FY 2024 low or no emissions vehicle program. Valley Metro's portion of this joint application included 20 diesel electric hybrid buses, 12 battery electric charging units, infrastructure upgrades to the Mesa facility. And as a requirement of this program, and a very important requirement at that, we included a workforce development component. The federal fund request for that grant application was about $25.8 million. The local match was $4.1 million. Next week in the West Valley, Avondale will celebrate the grand opening of the Avondale Transit Center on Monday, May 6th. Valley Metro partnered with the City of Avondale Public Works Department to construct this facility. This includes 2 bus bays, space for microtransit vehicles, so a smaller footprint vehicle, bus stop furnishings and fixtures, and pedestrian connection to an adjacent parking garage. So we look forward to celebrating with the City of Avondale on Monday. Looking ahead, tomorrow we have the Audit Finance Subcommittee meeting. The Board of Directors this month will be on May 16th. And looking to June, TMC, RMC in this room on June 5th, June 6th, Audit Finance Subcommittee, June 20th, Board of Directors. We do anticipate a July board recess. So this would be the final board meeting for our fiscal year. In the event these committees advance the budget to our board, we would expect to present the final budget to the joint boards at our Thursday, May 16th board meeting. Are there any questions that I may address, Madam Chair, members of the committee?
I am not seeing any questions, so thank you very much. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda. It is presented for action. Are there any questions or anybody wants to pull an item from the consent agenda? I am not seeing any, so could I get a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items 3A and 3B?
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I heard something.
Yeah, this is Mark Melichenko from Scottsdale. I have
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of questions on 3B.
3B, all right. Do you want to take those now and then vote on the whole consent agenda? Just looking for information or a presentation?
Yeah, information, just a couple of questions that I had.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Kind of given the uncertainty of Prop 400, I was just wondering if this is the most opportune time to purchase this new software. And then secondly, how critical is this software? And then aren't some of the benefits that are outlined, aren't those already being done or monitored by Clever Devices? We have a regional system for Clever Devices, and I'm wondering, and our staff is wondering if it's being used to its fullest capability and why we would, at least financially, uh, purchase this new software. So those are the questions that we have, especially in these kind of times which are uncertain regarding the tax extension. Thank you.
Jessica, how would you like to proceed?
I would be happy to address Mr. Melanchenko's questions, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question, Mr. Melanchenko. The Swiftly software is an operations performance reporting software. And what that does is it intakes data produced by a number of our operating systems, including CAT-AVL, which is computer-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle location. We do have a suite of reports that are produced by Clever. Clever's the manufacturer of that CAT-AVL system. This is a shared regional system, by the way. However, those reports are relatively limited. The information that they produce is somewhat rudimentary. We have completed a demonstration project using the Swiftly technology, and I will tell you, it has been able to save us a tremendous amount of time in understanding things like running times on both the buses and the rail system. And it allows us to be more nimble, which is a directive that this board gave a year ago, allows us to be more nimble and responsive when it comes to service planning. Our past practices have been very labor intensive. I was quite taken aback, I have to tell you, when I arrived here and we needed to make adjustments to the rail schedules, and we had staff following trains to determine runtime between time points by time of day. This is not how we can do business. I do want to note there's a cost which is outlined for you in this memo. However, what it does alleviate is workforce costs on a very lean team at collecting manual information. It allows us to make smarter decisions better and faster. As to the pending approval of the extension of Prop 479, we recognize this moment of uncertainty that we are in. Should Prop 479 not be passed, this introduces a whole different level of conversation for our region concerning not just the purchasing of equipment and cloud-based software like Swiftly, but also the delivery of service and how we might support that into the future. But as we aim to deliver service that is more meaningful, it is more on time, the service plan carries customers where they want to travel, when they want to travel, we need this real-time data to make informed decisions. I've used Swiftly in the past, and most organizations like ours are leveraging an interface software, typically one of a number of cloud-based software packages like Swiftly, to help them analyze the tremendous volumes of data that come at us every day. Have I answered your questions, Mr. Melanchenko?
Yes, I appreciate it.
All right. If those questions have been answered, I think I had a motion. Not sure. Rosa?
Yes.
And did I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. So item number 4, the fiscal year 2023. Jessica, would you introduce this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Our transit performance report, which was included in your packet this morning, is a report of system performance for fiscal year 2023. So I want to note this report pertains to the period ending June 30th, 2020. We do have staff. Aaron Xavier, our manager of service planning, is here to provide a presentation of our transit performance report if the committee prefers.
So I will ask the committee, this item is presented for information only. No action is required. Does anyone want a presentation on this item? Mr. Burke, you do? All right.
Mr. Xavier, would you join us and provide an update on the transit performance report? And this information, while Aaron's coming to the podium, this is an expansion of some of the content we provide through the quarterly reports. There's a little bit of a lag because this is agency data inclusive of financials, et cetera. Mr. Xavier.
It will take just 1 second while we load up the slides.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Pat. Aaron is new in his role as our manager of service planning. He got in last night. We were at the Apta Mobility Conference and a great opportunity to learn about some of the innovative mobility solutions that are being delivered by our peers across the country. So we are always learning and seeking to adapt.
Great. So thank you all. I'm a little bit, on my heels here, as Jessica said, coming back yesterday, and typically you'd see the other Erin presenting this information as this is kind of more in her wheelhouse, but I'd be glad to answer any questions after I go through this. So do I control the slides or? Okay, great. So again, this is from FY23, so July 1 of 2022 through June 30 of 23. Some of the highlights that we had were a nearly 10% increase in boardings from the previous year, which is a good sign of that kind of continual growth. Most of those, 68% were on bus, which is typical. We see most of our boardings on bus, even as the rail system, both the light rail and the streetcar, are expanding quite voraciously. 5 or so boardings per mile on the Valley Metro streetcar, which is one of the highest of all modes. It's really exceeding expectations in terms of the projections that we set forth initially when we had started that expansion of service. 91% of on-time performance on 88 paratransit, so that's really good, especially compared to any other mode. And on the van pool side, we had about $4.86 for those users, so the highest in terms of fare box recovery, which is typically the case as well. So for total boardings on the bus, as you can see, and as I mentioned before, we're having a nice steady increase on that side of service. So, we haven't had too much expansion on the bus side in terms of the service. So this is really just folks, filling in more of the service that we once had. Year over year, as you can see, we were at about 21 million boardings, FY21, and we've grown quite significantly, so about 4 million boardings over those 2 years. So that's encouraging, and we're still seeing that in some of the reports that we are putting out month over month that many of you review. So for the ridership trends, this is the annual increase or decrease in the average weekday boarding. So usually we look to the weekday averages as kind of a good benchmark because obviously most of the days in the year are weekdays. Most of the ridership in terms of the highest ridership days are weekdays. And so, FY21, obviously we were hit pretty hard with the COVID pandemic. So that was echoing, I think, in that year. And then FY23, we're seeing a bit of an increase year over year again. Not quite as much as we'd like to see, and especially when you look at the system overall, we're noticing that the weekdays aren't actually coming back quite as much as some of the weekends, actually, which is interesting. And actually, taking it back to the meeting that we were at with all the different agencies around the country, I think that is a trend that we've seen, and it even kind of echoes some stuff that we've seen in the origin destination study, where a lot of the work trips and the weekday peak trips are not coming back quite as strong as some of the other trips and some of the off-peak trips. So I think that reverberates into the statistic that we see here. So the increase in the Saturday, as you can see here, I think that's about 5% or so. Again, FY23, a bit of an outlier. FY22, I think we were still hitting a bit of a rough patch, but I think now the weekends are coming back a little bit stronger, especially relative to the weekdays. And this is especially pronounced in the Sundays, where we're seeing this nearly 16% increase in those Sunday average boardings. So I think, again, looking potentially to that model of service and saying, or really that blend of purposes and saying, how do we better serve these folks that are going not just to work, but to church or to shop or to see their friends and family, and borrow that success on the weekends to the weekdays, maybe a way that we can continue that increase in ridership. So the average historical fare, so as we see here, another encouraging sign, the average fare is growing. So in FY23, it was about 86 cents. The red line there shows you the average fare from FY14 to FY19. And that's an important period because FY14 was the first full year that we had after our last major fare policy change. And obviously FY19 was the first full year before all of the pandemic madness. So you can see that we're right about where we were pre-pandemic in terms of the recovery. And obviously, how much we get back in an average fare is a factor of many things. So it's not just the fare policy in terms of the base fare that we have, but it's also how frequently folks are using their platinum passes or their weekly passes. So the more that they're using those passes, obviously that is driving it down, even though it's a trend that we'd like to see is more folks using those passes as much as possible. So on-time performance, not too exciting here. It's almost an even keel in terms of what it's been the last few years. So still, hovering, right about where we want to be actually, 85% or so, which is our target on many of the services, on the bus system. That is our target. So we're right about that level. So that's a good sign there. And we are, actively working with our contractors at Keolis and National Express to target some of the worst offenders, I think, in on-time performance with schedule adjustments, and just trying to figure out what's happening on the ground. Is it a construction delay? Is it certain traffic configuration? Are there issues with the geofences and things of that nature that we can work with them, not just kind of use the stick method to improve that metric. Total light rail boardings. So light rail is recovering quickly. And again, this is not just rail specifically. This is light rail. So streetcar will come a little bit later. So we had 9.4 million boardings FY23. So again, we are growing that system. I think next year, especially with the Northwest 2 extension coming online, is going to help those numbers even more, and we're going to keep seeing that increase. But the system overall has been, I think, a little bit more resilient than the bus side. So the rail historical fares, again, kind of same dynamic. We've been coming up significantly, especially when you compare it to FY21. FY23 is just within striking distance of that previous figure, which, again, I said FY14 to FY19, which was that kind of stable period between the fare policy change and the COVID impact of backdoor boarding, which did significantly skew the amount of fare collection, which was right at about 78 cents. And, rail in FY23 was 73 cents. And I think, again, going back to the dynamic of having a lot of pass users on that system where they're essentially stretching their dollars and using that system pretty intensively with that pass, getting the biggest bang for their buck, I think is partially contributing to why that may be a little bit lower than on the bus side. On-time performance on rail over the past few years has gone down a little bit for various reasons. So I know, about this time last year, or thereabouts in the beginning of calendar year 23, we'd done a schedule adjustment. The on-time performance was looking really good, and then I think the beginning of that year was a little bit more challenging. So as you average that, it didn't look quite as good. And then obviously we've been having some more issues recently, but I don't think that plays into this number at all. But we are quite a bit below target, and that is something we're actively working with in terms of signal timing and other things to make that a little bit better next year. So for ridership trends on the streetcar, as I said, it's really going gangbusters. All the students are loving it and using it a lot in downtown Tempe. You go on there and you have nearly crush loads a lot. During not so much the PM peak, but kind of spread between the kind of the later part of the AM peak through the midday. There's kind of undulating waves of demand on that service, but overall, it's been doing really well. And, we look forward to seeing that service continue to defy our projections, even, as the potential of adding a fare to that service comes online, in the not too distant future. So for ADA, on-time performance, again, very good, more or less an even keel over the last 3 years, as you can see in the graph on the left. And the ADA cost per revenue hour on the right, which is, another encouraging sign that those costs have gone down, which is good, because I know on the bus side, it's a bit of a reverse trend there. But I think we're at about $92.5 dollars per revenue hour. So are there any questions, comments? I know I went through that a bit quickly, but that's kind of the directive here.
Did you have any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Digger, thanks for the presentation. Good data. Just curious, as continue to look at data, all kind of references pre-COVID. When do we're still using terms like recover. Hearing a point of retransition paradigm, or is the expectation still that one day we will return to?
Yeah, so I think, and admittedly, like I said, there was another Aaron who was probably better trained in terms of, what to say on some of this stuff. But I think part of the logic of just having the last 3 years, I think we kind of tried to not purposely show some of the FY20 stuff, because I think we're trying to get out of that mindset of, comparing ridership unnecessarily to those pre-COVID levels, and keep trying to set that benchmark. That a lot of the travel patterns have changed, especially with the peak travel time stuff, with the trip purpose stuff, a lot less work, a lot more multi-purpose trips taking place on the system. So I think we internally are trying to move beyond that and say, obviously we would like to get back to a level where the ridership is quite as robust as it was previously, and that future endeavors like comprehensive operational analysis, I think, will help us get a better handle on what the new travel patterns are, what kind of ridership can we grow into and expect to go into. I think the trends in terms of the ridership are encouraging, and I wouldn't count us out that, that things are going to plateau or anything like that. And the trend that we're on, I think we're certainly going to get to that level, within the next few years. That may be just me being optimistic, but I think, like I said, especially once we go through an operational analysis, we look at the new travel patterns of folks and saying, how does our network really meet this or not meet this? And how do our schedules meet this or not meet this? That'll give us an idea of not only what kind of demand should we be expecting potentially in the future, but what kind of changes can we make that are going to bring us back to our former glory, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question of, I agree this is great data, great information. It's 10 months after the end of the fiscal year, and so it'd be nice to see the data a lot earlier. And so given the discussion we had on the Swiftly software, we've got a new fare collection system going into place. Do you expect that those will be able to help us compile and analyze this data sooner?
We do compile and analyze the data sooner. So to this committee, this information comes on a quarterly basis via the quarterly reports, which also go to the board. But we're presenting this level of content to our member city staff every month. We have a series of meetings, including the West Valley Subregional Meeting and the East Valley Subregional Meeting, that really focus on bus and paratransit. And in those discussions, and these are big discussions that you or your team members are involved in, we're reviewing very detailed performance information, including these kinds of metrics about productivity, on-site performance, customer contacts. We're also talking about challenges the system is facing. We're likewise hearing from member cities about their priorities and initiatives. We have a corollary rail cities meeting that happens on a quarterly basis, but we're also sharing that information monthly. We would be happy, if it pleases this committee, to provide maybe we can elevate and just do a summary of those quarterly reports to draw attention to it. But you're right, Mr. Paniagua, this information is not actionable at this point, but we are collecting and acting on it in these other forums. This is a relatively new advent. We are right at a year, actually right at a year now, into those quarterly or those monthly sub-regional meetings. And I think they've been very productive. We're getting down into the details at the staff level, which is, I think, appropriate. And we've gotten great feedback from your city staff on those discussions. And then, of course, we've got one-on-one conversations going with all of our cities as well. So I really do commend, in particular, service planning team, Mike Powell and his team in transportation for facilitating those discussions.
Thank you.
And I would say on that note, just reviewing some of these notes this morning, I kind of agree with you that it was a bit silly to be talking about FY23, especially as a planner when I'm already well deep into FY25 thinking about what I'm going to be doing. So I think maybe the next cycle will be a little bit more aggressive with the data collection timelines to get this out to you, before May, for sure.
And maybe we can just rethink, and I'll have to go back and look at all of our various governing documents to see where this fits so that we can retool something, because this is now my third transit performance report, and every time I think, what are we doing with this at this stage?
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you all.
Travel and expenditures, it's presented for information only. Any questions? Not seeing any. So any current events or suggested future agenda items from members? Not seeing anything there. So next meeting on the TMC RMC is scheduled for Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 at 11 a.m. So I would like to convene the meeting for the Transit Management Committee, the May meeting. There's the consent agenda. It's presented for action. Are there any questions or any items that need to be pulled for separate discussion? I am not seeing any. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved. I'll second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Jason, were you the motion? Oh,
Kevin Burke.
good. Thank you.
Opposed? The consent agenda passes. So next item is the Valley Metro RPTA fiscal year proposed operating and capital budget and 5-year operating forecast and capital program, fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29. That's Jessica Medford Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite Ken Kessler, our Chief Financial Officer, to the podium to present the budget to you. We've had a couple of changes. One of them I want to note, since we last came together in April to review the draft budget, we did respond to board and member city feedback regarding the marketing item. So you'll hear from Ken on that topic. We did also discuss an executive session last month, Valley Metro Rail security, and we anticipate another follow-on discussion as a study session, or as an executive session, I'm sorry, at our May 16th board meeting. So we have taken that feedback and made some changes here.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to run through this fairly quickly because most of the information is what you saw last month, and I'm really just kind of run through it and take any questions. As Jessica mentioned, really just a few changes here. We just kind of showed a sample initiative here of kind of how to follow the initiative sheets that are in your packet. This is just more for as we go through the information, how you can follow the initiatives and how they go back to the detail. Again, this is the format for presenting and developing the budget and how it plays out here in terms of the actual numbers for the year. So very little change to the RPTA budget, about 300,000, 250,000 actually, from the marketing initiative on the bus side that was added in response to some of the feedback we heard. So that's the primary change in terms of the dollars from the last time you saw this presentation. And again, here's just a summary of our costs in the operating budget and the resources that fund the operating budget here as well. Again, very little change from last time you saw this. And just running through the initiatives, we saw this last month. Whoops, didn't mean to go so fast. With the exception of the first one here, we've titled service promotions. This is the bus side marketing that we've added into the budget for FY25. And you know, the additional initiatives that we all looked at last month here, just run through these and stop there and see if, are there any questions on anything so far before we just run through quickly on the obligations initiatives. Okay.
I am not seeing any.
All right, so again, the summary here of the ongoing obligations for RPTA, again, these are the same as what we reviewed last month during the presentation. And then our capital budget, no changes here on the uses or the sources. And then just, again, the pass-through funds from RPTA, mostly to VMR, as well as a lot of refunds that are passed through to member cities. The sources that fund that. And then the 5-year forecast, no significant changes here. Again, just in the FY25 addition for that marketing initiative, about a $1.7 billion program for 5 years. And then on the capital side, we've got about a $537 million 5-year program. And just will mention, again, here's the timeline for the budget process. We did have 3 additional FTEs added into the budget since last month, but those FTEs are added at no additional cost. So this is to administer the fair programs and fair revenues for the region. For many, many years, going back probably 2 or 3 decades, the city of Phoenix has managed these fair programs and managed the overall fair administration in terms of collecting all the revenues and distributing them. With the new fair collection system, those responsibilities are going to transition from Phoenix to Valley Metro, recognizing that those are more regional functions and activities. And we collaborated with Phoenix a few years back at the beginning of the project and determined it was best that Valley Metro take on those duties. We're adding FTEs at this point, as we have just recently kind of evaluated what our needs are versus what types of activities will be automated with the new system. And so Phoenix over the years has charged Valley Metro and RPTA and Valley Metro Rail for the respective shares of that cost. So we'll no longer bear those costs coming from Phoenix, and we'll have these additional FTEs that will perform that administrative activities and really at about the same cost as it costs us today from Phoenix. So that's a recap of the RPTA budget. Happy to take any questions.
I am not seeing any. Thank you.
Okay, and this is on the agenda for action,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it is. So no
Thank you,
questions.
Madam Chair.
Since there are no questions, I request a motion and a second to forward to the Board of Directors approval of the fiscal year 25 proposed operating and capital budget and 5-year operating forecast and capital program fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29. Could I get a motion and a second, please?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any.
Nice job.
Oh,
I was just saying, nice job.
all right. It passes.
Thank you.
So, and yes, nice job. Thank you. Current events and suggested future agenda items. Are there any from any of the members? I'm not seeing any. So the next meeting is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Yeah, I can turn it on.
Okay, I'll go ahead and convene the Rail Management Committee meeting. The first item on our agenda today is the consent agenda, which is presented for action. Any questions or any items that any members want to pull for discussion? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, item passes unanimously. That takes us to item 2, Valley Metro Rail FY25 proposed operating and capital budget and 5-year operating forecast and capital program. Back to you, Jessica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, like to invite Ken Kessler. We should have just had you stand at the ready, Mr. Kessler, to present the draft Valley Metro Rail operating capital budget.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Jessica. Mr. Chair, I will save you the time of going through all those slides, pretty much the same as what we just looked at. The Valley Metro Rail budget literally has no changes from last month, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, hearing none, this item, oh, you've got one.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I'm a little late. I just realized what Jessica said. Could you, in your comments about the budget, you talked about seeing some increases for security. Could you talk about what those changes were for the increases for security?
We discussed this at the executive session last month. There won't be any increases to security in the initial budget for FY25, rather at the direction of our board and TMC RMC members at that time. Any changes, should they happen, would come as a mid-year adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd be happy, Ms. Rell, to talk about that a little bit offline.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Any other questions? All right, says a lot about the great job you guys are doing, the fact that we've got very few questions and are moving this right along. You guys are doing some great work. So this item is for action. Actually, it is for action, right? Okay, the script led me astray. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the budget or forward the budget to the board.
And I second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 3, report on current events and suggested future items. Seeing none, our next meeting is Wednesday, June 5th. Thanks, everybody.